I'm Will.
And I'm Bella,
Welcome to Holy Matrimony.
a podcast where we discuss my journey into the world of professional wrestling.
And I get to teach you about my ultimate obsession.
But first, sorry guys, I have to hit you with it. Please like, subscribe, comment, and follow. You can find us on social media. We are on X and Instagram at Holy Matrimony. That's spelled MATCHRIMONY. I know, super clever. We're also on TikTok at holy.matrimony. Same spelling, of course. You can find us on most of the popular podcast players. And we are also on YouTube, so some of you are watching us. We have the Holy Matrimony podcast. That's the YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/at Holy Matrimony. Of course, all the same spelling across everything, everyone. We will be releasing episodes every Thursday. So if you could also please rate and review, that helps boost our channels.
Yeah, thank you for all that. We can definitely get into episode 1.
Yes, so this is the first episode that we're doing here, guys. So we just probably want to do a little introduction of ourselves and why we're here and how we got here.
Yes, so I guess we just talk about ourselves. I'm Will.
And I'm Bella, of course.
If you've listened to our teaser, you know we're a married couple.
Yes, we have been married for, I should quiz you here.
8, almost 9.
Yep, 8, almost 9 years, but we've been together for 13 years now.
Yes.
So quite a while.
Yes.
And we actually met in high school.
Correct.
So, high school sweetheart, so cute. We've pretty much, we know like everything about each other, do everything together, one of those couples when you're together this long. And we definitely have always had very similar interests, so we bonded right away, especially with, certain things we liked, including like some of like the nerdy things, right? So like superheroes was something we were both into. But there were definitely things that we didn't have similar interests on or hobbies.
Yeah, so I'm a self-proclaimed nerd, but like superheroes, all that stuff. But my two biggest obsessions that I've had were pro wrestling, which obviously this podcast is about, and Star Wars.
Yes, and I definitely didn't get into either
No,
at all.
not for the lack of me trying.
No, but you definitely had worked at me on both. And obviously this podcast will talk about the wrestling part, but Star Wars, you got me first.
Yes, so I again, big Star Wars fan, huge Star Wars fan. I tried to get you to watch it. You weren't having it, but eventually it came around, right? When The Force Awakens came out, I think you watched it and you finally started to become a Star Wars fan, and now I'd say you're like a full-fledged fan.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a Star Wars fan the way Star Wars fans are.
Yes.
Like I don't know like all the Star Wars stuff. I actually don't even think I fully got through episode 3. Wait, no.
Episode 2.
No. Of the original trilogy.
Oh, episode 3. Yes.
So
that's 6.
Yeah, that's episode 6. Sorry. See, obviously I'm not a Star Wars fan because every Star Wars fan is like, no, that's episode 6. Anyway, but because obviously when I was young, I think I watched like one Star Wars film in theater with my mom. So that would have been the prequels.
Yes.
Because at that age, and I remember we went, and at that age I was not into it.
No.
And so I think that always stuck in my mind. So I said no Star Wars. I wasn't into it. I knew about Star Wars because who doesn't know about Star Wars? But I had no interest because I'm not really like a sci-fi fan or really any of that. It's really like superheroes was the only thing like in the quote unquote nerd category that I was into. But you were really into it, and so you tried and tried. You tried having me watch Star Wars with you, and I wouldn't. And then yes, the new ones came out, and you're like, let's go to the theater, and we love movies. So I was like, well, it's a movie. Let's go. And man, I was like, dang, this is a good movie. So I got into Star Wars. And since then, yeah, I'm definitely into it. Not the same way you guys are for the Star Wars fans out there. But
Right.
since then, yes, I have watched the movies, the shows. I have obsessions of my own with it.
Yes. Yep. I could go on and on about all the Grogu stuffed animals we have, but that's a different podcast. Yeah. So you're finally becoming a fan, right? I think we've even gone to, um, the Disney World,
Oh,
Galaxy's
yes.
Galaxy's Edge.
Which was one of the coolest experiences.
Yeah.
And, you even talked me into getting like some merch that not Grogu merch. It was the Han and Leia shirts,
This is like I love you.
the
I
I know.
know.
Well, opposite.
Yes,
Yes.
but
But yeah, so and love those and that was cute and like
right.
our cute little couple shirt and yes.
Yes. But so I think the big thing to kind of learn there is that Star Wars and wrestling, how your kind of love or passion for those started very similar. Wrestling just took a little bit longer.
Yes, how you can pull me to the dark side
I can do that.
pretty easily. Yes. Well, actually not easily,
It took a
but
lot of work. It took
you
a lot
can
of
get
work.
me there. That's how our relationship has worked in that for sure.
Yes.
But, obviously this podcast is definitely about the wrestling side,
Yes.
which took a lot longer for
Yes.
you to get me there.
A lot longer.
But before we get into all that, we should probably talk about your obsession with it because I mean honestly when we put it on a scale of Star Wars and wrestling, I don't know which is more of an obsession for you if you would even rank them.
No.
They might be equal in your book. If I quiz you on either, you would know. Like I would never
Yeah.
like battle you on that. But I want your history with wrestling and how you got to this obsession.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we have enough time on this podcast for me to go through everything, but no, just kidding. I'll make it brief here. So I did um start watching wrestling later than a lot of wrestling fans, I would say. A lot of wrestling fans watch them when they're younger kids. I didn't start watching until middle school, and I think you said our ages earlier to know that was around the time when like Eddie Guerrero had passed, and so I was watching SmackDown, and that was kind of the first big wrestling event I remember. But after watching it, like my friend called me, got me in, told me he was watching it. I started watching it, and it hooked me right away. The action, the drama, the characters, like that hooked me right away from middle school. And then from then on, I mean, for a good few years straight, I didn't miss a SmackDown or a Raw.
And you said Eddie Guerrero.
Yes,
That's Poppy, right?
that's the inspiration for the Judgment Day's, yes, mommy
For
shirts.
mommy. Okay.
Yes,
And
yes,
sorry, the wrestling fans. I know Eddie Guerrero is probably much more than Poppy. I will learn that eventually, but because I'm new to this, I have to learn people in a certain way, and I'm learning things my way. So, of
yes,
course, I know things based on either more current wrestling standards or, stuff that I know from way back. So, obviously, because I know what's happening now,
yes,
you had explained to me the whole mommy thing.
yes,
And so that's how I remember Eddie Guerrero because he was Poppy. So,
yes. We
okay.
could definitely get into that event at some point because it's very
Yes.
interesting to talk through how we know certain things. But yes, so that was the first big wrestling like moment in wrestling that I remember. Um, Throughout those times, I got the privilege of going to multiple live events. I went to a couple different SmackDown tapings. The biggest event that I was able to go to was a No Way Out show in Vegas. The one wrestling fans that remember, it's the one where Floyd Mayweather came in and like debuted before his big match. So I got to see a lot of cool things during my time, like watching wrestling, being a wrestling fan. As I get older, obviously, like most wrestling fans, kind of involvement in the show goes in and out. You watch sometimes, you don't, but I've always kept up with it. Um, so may not always watch every single week, but definitely always know what was going on. And within the last few years, my obsession has kind of ramped back up, and I've started to really watch it weekly again, and just really be really heavily involved in the shows. And again, throughout the entire time, trying to get Bella to watch and become a fan throughout all of it was probably the biggest thing that I was trying to do.
Yeah. And I do think that you are downplaying your childhood obsession with it. because your mom will sit there and tell about, you doing all the wrestling moves and her having to sit there while you're trying to, you know, wrestle with her or whatever toy you could find, the dogs, whatever.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, definitely, I was probably one of the poster child for the WWE "Don't try this at home" message. My friend and I would create a whole match and using cookie sheets to hit each other with instead of steel chairs, and yeah, definitely stuff we shouldn't have been doing. But yeah, that was a very big obsession of mine for a very long
so
time.
what you're saying is if your mom would have had the steel chair, you would have used it. Or did she have one and you just chose not to use it?
She definitely had one. We definitely used it certain times.
Oh, okay.
I will not deny that.
If you're listening, he didn't. He's just saying that. No, I'm just going to. Anyway, also, there's the famous story your dad tells any time he meets somebody.
Just
Plus,
to
he's told me 50 times. I
just
think he
to
forgets.
whoever will listen. Yes.
Yes, and so, about his birthday.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So his birthday one year, I don't even remember what year it was anymore, but we get up and he's like, "Hey, I got a surprise for my birthday. I'm gonna take you to a wrestling event." It was shock. They planned this whole. My parents had planned this whole trip out. We were going to St. Joseph, Missouri, for a WWE live event. It
Shout
was
out to St. Joseph, Missouri.
yep, yep. It was my second ever live event, and it was the one where my dad actually bought me this replica kids world heavyweight championship. So definitely a special memory in my heart, but also something that he will never let me live down. So
But he secretly loved it.
he loved it.
He
Yes.
he tells it as well, for my birthday I took you, but I think he loved it.
Yes. But I think that shows just so again, my parents were never wrestling fans before me, but it shows just how much you can learn to love wrestling and be involved with it. My parents are not people that like wrestling at all, but because I love it, and we'll get more into it because they would love the live events, they started to love it.
Yes, and you were just so obsessed. That's all you wanted at that time,
Yes,
according to them.
yes. Um, so that brings us again kind of to here, right? Where now all of a sudden you're a wrestling fan. So I had this obsession, and you did not want any part of it. So we can describe kind of how we got here from your point of view. I will say it's not for the lack of me not trying. There were multiple times. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I like to point out
Oh yeah,
because
go
I
ahead.
think it's funny. So you said that you started watching wrestling in middle school,
Yes,
and you're the biggest wrestling fan here.
yes, your point.
And I wasn't a wrestling fan, and you've pushed me and pushed me for 13 years. But I actually started watching wrestling, and my first encounters with WWE and wrestling was much younger.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you're a bigger fan, but really, I watched wrestling before you. So I do like to point that out. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, something I also can't live down. Mm-hmm.
No. Because so, going through this podcast, I'm going to talk about my first experience with wrestling, kind of with you and how it got me to this point. But it wasn't really my first experience with wrestling. My first experience was much younger. I, I mean, I can't even really give you an age, but I was young because I
Mm-hmm.
I watched wrestling with my cousin. So when I would visit him, he watched wrestling. Of course, he loved it. And so I mean, man, probably like 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. When I'd visit him, we would watch, and same thing. I think all kids, tried the wrestling moves.
Don't yeah, try this at
Yeah,
home.
they
Mm-hmm.
told us not to try it at home, but oh, we did. But of course, my favorite wrestler was The Rock. So I was watching it then, and everyone's favorite wrestler, I think, as a kid was The Rock back then, but definitely mine and my cousin. So, not only would we practice the moves, but we'd practice being cool and, probably, sorry, parents, like cussing and stuff because he was so cool and, he was mean. And that's what we did. So it
Yeah.
was pretty young, but of course, when I wouldn't be with him, I wouldn't watch it. And then after, like, we grew up and he wasn't watching, I stopped. So after that, I didn't watch it myself. And then obviously, I never watched it growing up. And then even once we got married and you tried, I stopped watching
Right.
it and I never did.
Never
So
did.
I just like to point that out because it's fun.
Yeah, yeah, you always have to point that out. But I think that's, again, kind of goes into it. So you didn't watch wrestling after that point, and you have younger siblings who, uh, were kids and they watched it a little bit, right? So definitely there were times where I would, see your siblings and I would have them watch it with me, and we'd try to get you to watch it with us, and you just never would. You've always held strong and never wanted to watch it.
Yeah, it's probably your guys' fault
Of
because I'm the
course.
person that the more you try to get me to do it, I'm not going to.
Hmm.
So you just tried and tried and tried on your own, and then, you would get them to watch it with you. I don't know how you did it or if you bribed them or what, but you'd be like, well, they watched it, and then you'd have them come to me and be like, oh, it was actually really fun. It was pretty good. Like, and they'd tell me like little wrestler names and be like, it was actually really fun. And I'd be like, no. And so honestly, that's probably why it like
Hmm.
pushed me to be like, no. And I held strong too. But yeah, even they watched it with you. I mean, everybody would watch it with you. What me,
Yes.
practically.
Yes. And I think I remember, a couple different times trying to get tickets to live events. It was like, hey, they're coming here. Let's try to go. Hey, we're going to Vegas and there's a show. We should try to go. I think I remember telling you like, Bella, just come with me to one. You might not like it, but I think you're gonna love it. Like, just come on, and you just wouldn't do it.
Oh yeah, you did that. You'd be like, it's my birthday. Like, let's do this show. It's Christmas. That's what I want for Christmas. I remember there was the
The
cruise.
Jericho Cruise.
At
Yep.
first I thought you were making it up. I still kind of think you are,
Nope.
but
Still going. We should still do it.
yep, there was a cruise. You even told your parents. Your mom was so excited for the cruise. I even tried to convince her. I said if she paid for it, that I would go. I think she thought about it. I really
I think she
do.
tried. Yep.
I don't. I mean, honestly, probably behind my back, you guys probably like looked it up. It just didn't work out, but I would have. I would have went on the cruise for sure. Because I haven't ever been on a cruise, but it just never happened. I mean, you try because you would
Hmm.
even you just like have it on. If I like get home from work, it'd be on, and you'd like try to keep it on, or I'd like take a nap, and you'd be like, "Hey, well, while you're napping, I'm gonna have it on." And if if you just like listen and like it, or just like
Yep.
you would try, you
I would
tried,
try.
you slid it in there as much as possible, and I think you would even be like, just watch like one, not
Yes.
even a show. You just be like, just like this one
Just this match.
match.
I promise. It's just this match. You're gonna like it. I promise.
Yeah, and I don't think I would. And if anything, I'd be like, well, let me look, and like you put on, and they do like one
Move.
move, and I just be like, yeah, no,
Yeah, I definitely tried a couple times, and you definitely shot it down a couple times.
yeah, it just wasn't happening. I will give you the credit that you tried.
Yes. But I guess that leads us to here, and that all changed.
Yeah, magically, I just
Yeah,
woke up
magically.
one day
Yeah, I don't think that's how it happened.
and was like, wow, I think I really like wrestling today.
I wish. No, we should talk about how this changed.
Absolutely, because it all came down to a show.
One live event. So I don't even know, and you could speak more on this as to why you even agreed to go to a live event with me after all these years of not agreeing.
Yeah, I think I don't know either. I do think it was just like a mix of wild, crazy circumstances, or just some things just come together.
Hmm.
So I know there was just a lot going on at the time. We were gonna go do something like with me and my family that's like more like on the lines of like what I choose and like I do for fun. And then this was something like, that you do. So we try to go back and forth like, oh, something of my interest, something of yours. Also, it was like a change in our lives for those who know us, but for our new listeners and everything, I just turned 30. Last year you turned
34.
30.
Yep.
So, like the change from the 20s to the 30s, we're like trying new things and we're trying to like better ourselves and, just like live life differently. So it's like, okay, well, it's a new thing to do. And we're trying to like get out more. And your parents actually went to this show with us too. And they had wanted to spend some time with us. They hadn't for a little bit. Plus, they wanted to get out. They were kind of cooped up a little bit for a while. And so, well, that's kind of like a perfect thing. It's something we could go to, spend time with, but they also get out. I think the tickets were on sale or something.
Hmm.
I don't know. I still don't know why I said yes, because I've said no. I think it's worked out better in the past, but this one, I don't know, it just all came together.
Yeah, because this was actually a little hectic in trying to get the logistics of how we were going to get there and stuff worked out. But yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, because we were literally in between two trips. I think I literally like flew back in town
Yep.
the day
I
before or
think
the
it was
day
the day
of.
of
Oh yeah, I flew back in town the day of, and then we flew out of
the
town.
next day.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's it was meant to happen,
It it it,
clearly.
it clearly was. So definitely, we'll talk about the show and you could walk through your experience with that show. But for me, yeah, it was my first live event in ages, in a long time, and I was just definitely excited to share the experience. I think I remember telling you, like, Bella, like, you're gonna like it. Like, just give it a chance. It's an experience that you don't understand. I know we've gone to concerts before, we've done things before, we've done the games, but it's different. And I don't think you believe me. I think you were just like, it's what we see on TV. I don't know that you believe me fully, but you can definitely kind of take it off from there and explain your experience that day.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been to so many sporting events, like different sports, different like levels of sporting events, right? Like all the way from like
Hmm.
high school sports up to professional sports. Like you said, concerts. We've been to so many concerts, and so I'm like, I've done it all. I don't know what different could mean. Plus, I know nothing about it. I have no interest in it, but I was like, I'll go. Like go in with an open mind.
Hmm.
And I also, because we've gone to concerts of people we don't know.
Yes.
And I've gone to like sporting events of sports that I don't really like get into or care about. But when you go to events, they're still fun. Like you can have a good time.
Yes.
And because it's more of like the experience of it. So I'm all for that. Like I'll go to concerts of people like I totally don't know. If you go with like a good group of people, you're gonna have a good time. So I was like, well, yeah, I'll just go for the experience. Plus, it was spending time, and I know you love it, so I was like, okay, well, it's fun, and maybe I can use it later to go to something I want to go to or something.
We
Um,
would never do that.
yeah, kind of kidding, but kind of not. But I'm like, well, and maybe if I do this once, it doesn't work
Stop
out.
asking.
Maybe he'll never ask me again. But yeah, I guess we could talk about the show,
The show.
how it went.
Yes. So you probably have way more of an experience at the show than I did.
Yeah, because for you, it was probably like, I guess, like on a scale of like all the shows you've gone to, like, what, like, where did it rank?
So it's very hard because I mean, every other show I went to, I was a kid,
True.
right? So it's hard to kind of rank them, but because obviously it's fresh in my memory, you have a new appreciation for it, but it's pretty high up there. I think I've been to 5 different shows, so it's definitely top 2 or 3 for me.
Oh, okay, good. So obviously it was my first.
Yes,
So.
top one.
Yeah, it was definitely the best of all the shows I've gone to wrestling wise. No, honestly though, it was a roller coaster of
Hmm.
emotions for me. And I still think even after it took me like days to fully understand how I felt about it. But I can kind of explain how it went
Yeah.
through the show. So I know like even just like walking in, I immediately realized like the people there, they were like there, right? They were serious. This is like they were excited. It's not like I went to like Royal Rumble or like WrestleMania.
No.
But man, it was like the crowd was on. And this was before I even went into like the actual like seating like the arena. This was just like walking in,
Right.
to where like the concessions and everything are. But people were like excited, everyone's like they have their merch on. It was also like around Halloween, like or it was like the Halloween
Yeah.
show or
Yeah.
something.
Definitely.
So people were like dressed up too as like the wrestlers and stuff, like which is funny because I've gone to like Halloween like concerts and stuff, and so like people dress up for Halloween, but they dress up as like Halloween. They don't like dress up as like the artist, which is kind of funny, right? Because it's for Halloween. Why won't you dress? No, nobody was dressed up as like a cat or like a witch, right?
Yeah.
No, they were dressed up as like wrestlers, which was kind of cool
Yes.
because I do know, like I wasn't into wrestling, but I do know
Yeah,
wrestlers
like the Undertaker. You're somebody dressed up like that. You know who that is,
for
obviously.
sure,
Yeah.
and like I know some people because of you. So
Yes.
like, like Randy Savage, like there was like a lady who had like really cool like Randy Savage get up and stuff. So like people were like dressed up. So it was kind of cool.
Yes.
So like just walking in, I was like, wow, okay, like these people are like into this. So it was like a good vibe. I guess
Mm-hmm.
vibe is the good word. And then we went in, like we sat down. And we had like some pretty good seats
Mm-hmm.
too. I was like, oh, okay, like I can like see this is good. And then it started, and I remember like, the first person walked out and wrestler walked out, and I know wrestlers like have entrance songs or like entrances. Obviously, I do that from watching and like back then, but I wasn't ready for like the crowd to be as on it as they were.
Mm-hmm.
And man, like were they on it? So I kind of like right off the bat felt like left out, stupid something because I was like, wow, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
Because obviously I didn't know anybody.
Right.
I knew nothing that was going on. But immediately like the crowd was on it and I was like, "Oh, was I supposed to like do something? Was I supposed to be part of that?" Cuz I had nobody gave me like a cue card, nothing. So, but I was like, "Okay, it's fine, whatever." And then the first match started. And it was immediately like I was out of it. I was like done because it was the weirdest experience I've ever had. Because
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I've been to many sporting events.
Yeah.
And what it was the fact that it was, I don't want to say silent because there was sounds, but it was silent in the sense of there's like no music or anything,
Right.
which a lot of sporting type events have like music going.
Yeah, especially like basketball games, they'll play music during the game, so
Yes.
you just kind of be entertained.
Or even if there's sports that don't play music during the actual game, like people talk, right? So there's always like sound. There's like a buzz of like music or not music, like words and like people talking conversations. Like a lot of people are like moving around, whatever. No, it was silent except for like the mat hitting. So like
Mm-hmm.
obviously like what the actual wrestlers were doing. And then just the crowd just doing like the oh, like, oh yeah, and like the cheers. And I'm like, this is like really weird.
Right.
Because also like there's no commentator, which obviously when
Right.
you're ever at a live sporting event, you don't hear the commentator like you do on TV.
Right.
But I was like, so we're just gonna sit here and just hear like a mat hit for however long, and just the crowd just has to make the noise for that. Like I don't know, I was like immediately thrown off, and I think I looked to you right away,
Yeah, you did.
and I was like, why is there no music or anything?
Yes.
And I think I immediately saw you kind of like deflate.
Yeah. Well, because again, I came into this knowing you didn't like this or expected to like it, but I was like, maybe she'll get into it. And so when you looked over at me and said that, immediately my mind just said, she's not gonna like it. Like I tried so hard, man, she's not gonna like this. And in my mind, I'm like, she's gonna have to sit here this whole time and just be miserable because she's not gonna like this. Like, dang it, that sucks.
Yeah, because I think I asked you too. I was like, wait, how long
Yeah,
is
and I was
this?
like, 3 hours.
Yeah, and I don't even want to know what my face was like because I was like 3 hours of just this. But when I saw like your face, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna give any more comments because I wanted you to have a good time. And like I saw you were like, oh man. And I was like, okay, I'm just like not gonna say anything and I'll just sit here and watch.
Hmm.
But I'm like, there's no way. Like I can watch this for 3 hours. Just this. And it was like it was just so weird because there wasn't anything going on, like
Right.
sound wise. But I was like, okay, like just watch, whatever. And then because it was like an actual live taping,
Hmm.
I remember like it went to commercial, and they played like a promo. And that first promo I remember was Drew McIntyre's promo. And he was talking about like his WrestleMania experience like during COVID or whatever. And I was like watching it and right away, I was like, oh gosh, here we go. Because I've always been like, oh, this stuff's like cheesy, whatever. But I'm watching it and as it's going, I was like, dang, like I'm kind of like into this. Like, yeah, wow, like this is good. This is a good promo. I was like, I'm like kind of into the story, and I was like, wonder like what's gonna happen with him next because I think it was like leading up to like the crown jewel.
Yes.
So that's kind of what he was talking about, and plus, obviously everything's leading up to Royal Rumble and WrestleMania eventually.
Hmm.
But I was like, oh, okay, dang, that was like kind of cool, And then it comes back from commercial, and Seth freaking Rollins comes out,
Yep.
and his music plays.
which is crazy. Even me being there, I've been there before, hearing everybody just sing his music.
Yeah, and you were singing it too.
Yes, of course.
And you normally like, even at home and stuff, like you don't like sing and do stuff.
No, I'm kind of like more of an introvert, generally speaking, with some of those things.
Oh yeah, and you just like stood up and you just with everybody else are just like, scream singing this like song.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, like you didn't tell me. So I'm like sitting there like dumb, like, okay. But everyone, it was like just so on it. So I think between like that promo
Mm-hmm.
and Seth coming out, like something hit me. And I was like, dang, there was like an emotion or something there. But I'm like, this is like a thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone is like so into this. And you could like see like by everyone's like I know more now, but like what everyone's wearing, like everyone's saying. It doesn't matter if like Seth Rollins is like your guy. When he comes out, everyone's gonna like do his theme song, right? And like everyone was into it. It was like such like this like collective like group, and it was like it was the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, like this is kind of like I was like feeling it.
Right.
And then he came out and he talked, because Seth talks, and I was like kind of like getting more into it. And I was like, okay,
Yep.
I think I'm getting it. And I was like, I could feel myself slowly like paying more attention. And then like the next match started, and it didn't like hit me anymore. The like silence, like I said, silence isn't the best word, but like that silence,
like awkwardness, kind of.
yeah. But it like didn't get me because I was actually like paying attention to it.
Right.
And like actually what they were doing. And I was like, oh, it's kind of cool, and like I get it, and I get why everyone's like and like I wasn't doing that yet. Like now I for sure would, but
yes.
I got it.
Yes.
The next match. And so like as I went, and then like the Miz came out. And of course, like I know the Miz. I didn't know the Miz from wrestling. I knew he was a wrestler, but I didn't know him from wrestling.
Right.
But I knew the Miz, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that. Nobody told me the Miz was coming. Like if you would have told me, I would have been excited, And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the Miz, And he did his little talk show, so I was like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so like as the show went, like the more that happened, the more I was like, oh, okay,
right,
like this is kind of cool. And so really, what I think it was really is like the obviously like the wrestlers and like the stories, like it's cool. Like now I get that more, but it's the people
mm-hmm.
and the fans. I've never seen that much of like this collective energy. Like nothing else mattered. No, like nobody cared. Like it was just being there. Like everyone was just there. They're having a good time, and they're there for this thing.
Right.
And they're so in it together. Like there's no other sport that's like that. None.
Right.
Like there's other sports where people, oh yeah, like they're into it, but because it's like teams and stuff, like, and people can get like what, like no, these people like, oh, the energy's top level, but they're here for this.
Yes.
And it's just like collectively, everyone knows like what's going on. It's like you want to be part of it.
Yes. Well, I think for me, a couple moments that stand out, like when I remember looking at you and I noticed you were having a good time, like I could tell, was like during the commercials they showed like the kids in the crowd and they were just dancing and like waving their title belts, and I could just tell that you like lit up for that part to see like look how much like happiness this brings these kids. But this like for me, I think it shows like, hey, people of all ages. My parents are, older, and they're enjoying it just as much as these little kids are. You know what I mean? But to me, that's a moment that it brought me like, oh yeah, Bella's enjoying this.
Oh yeah, the kids. I mean, even watching it now, like the TV stuff, the kids get me every time. I love the kids. Like, and I mean, those kids are like on it.
They're in it. They're in
those kids like a dude would get thrown down, and the kid's like, yeah, and you're like, dang, like okay. I was like, I need to get that kid's level, like, but it's true. Like everybody there, it's like so many different types of people there,
mm-hmm.
but like they're all there for the same thing. They're all like in a good mood. Like it's just great experience.
Yes.
And like now even watching on TV, I see the same thing now, like watching the crowds. It's always the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I would have just watched like a full like TV episode, like on TV
Right.
of Raw, SmackDown, anything, I don't think I would have got into it.
No.
I think being there live is what got me.
Yeah, there's definitely a different feel to being there live. 100%. Something I remember you looking over to me, and it was either during Seth or Sammy when people are singing. I remember you looking over like, is this normal? And I was like, for some people, yeah. But I think I said something like, just wait till the end. And I don't think you knew what I meant. And I was like, wait till Cody comes out.
Oh yeah, because that like finished it off for me too.
Yes.
Because like Cody came out, of course, Cody Rhodes,
Cody
Yeah.
Rhodes.
Who you were so excited for because you love Cody.
Yes.
And I thought for like Seth, people went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. When Cody came out, I mean, I'm surprised we didn't get like shut down. Like there's no way people like 3 miles away didn't hear like everyone singing for his stuff. And you too, like that made, even if I didn't like the whole show, that would have made it worth it because you were so happy.
Right.
But so was like everybody. Like I was like, literally didn't know him. Knew nothing about him. You never even told me anything about him. Like I've heard his name because you had like bought a shirt from him and like
Right.
that you liked him, but I knew nothing about it. I wouldn't have even been able to point him out.
Right.
But he came out and it was like, I mean, the best.
Yes.
It was like the best thing ever.
Yes.
And I was excited. I was like, I don't even know who he is, but I was like, yeah, like come on, because how could you not when like just the whole crowd's like that?
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
It's impossible to like not just be in a good mood when the whole crowd's erupting for one person.
Oh yeah, because I mean, even just like walking out, you're like hyped. You're like, oh yeah, that was like so cool,
Yes.
Just because it just gets you so pumped up.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it was just like one of like the best experiences. So that's really what got me here.
Right.
Because I don't think I would have got there any other way.
Yeah. No, and I don't think you would have either. That's what it take. That's what it was gonna take. Was a live event.
Yeah. So thank you, fans, because it honestly it was like the crowds and like I said, obviously the wrestlers and actually like what they do and like getting more into it now because like I said, the promos and stuff were so cool too and I got into that, but it was just like the mix of just everything, but that environment, it just like pulls you in and I'm like, I see like why you guys like this so much and why you're such fans. And honestly, like it's like, wow, you guys are like probably like the best fan base just because the unity alone.
Yeah, I think especially at live events. Obviously, we'll get into more talking through like what fans think and opinions and that's all different. But I do think that at least the ones I've been to, the fans are generally united in those shows.
Well, yeah, and of course, like there's, like oh, this wrestler against this wrestler, and but it's just like when they're like when you're there, it's like everyone's there for like the show,
the
and they like
same
get
reason.
into it's like it's the whole thing of like oh, we're all good sports, right? So like we're all playing along to the same thing, and it's like you're all bought into the same thing, and it's
Yes.
just a good time. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've just never experienced something like that because like I've been to concerts and like for artists and you get with a good crowd and you just like have this like really good experience, like you can do that, but with like sports type stuff, like I've just never felt that. Like I've just never felt a crowd just be so like engaged
Right.
and so into something ever before.
Yeah. No, it is. It's completely different than anything I think at all.
Yeah, so I love it. I'm so glad I went.
I'm also so glad you went.
And obviously like since then, because of that, it like stayed with me
Yes.
and like I couldn't let it go.
Yeah, so that's definitely what we should kind of talk through now is how from then to here, how do we get here to where you're, a full-blown fan?
Well, I mean, I definitely think because I was like getting invested in some of the people, like the
Mm-hmm.
wrestlers, because not only the promos, but like some of the matches, and of course, like it sets up. So I was like, oh well, next week, and then it did set up for Crown Jewel. So I do
Mm-hmm.
remember that because Crown Jewel was coming up, and I was like, oh, I'm excited for some of those matches because
Right.
obviously, like if there's certain wrestlers like you kind of got into, then it's like, oh, well, I need to see if they're going to win their match. So I remember like sitting on that and being like, wait, am I going to have to watch this now? You know?
Yeah. So I remember it a little different, I think, than I think we talked about this, but I remember you leaving there, and I asked you how you liked it, and you're like, I liked it. It was fun, and I was like, oh really? And you're like, don't ask me much more though. Like I liked it. It's fun. Maybe we'll go to another one day, but like that's it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm just happy you liked it. You had a good time. And then we were on a plane. So we were on the plane, and your AirPods died. And on that plane, I downloaded a few different wrestling shows. And so I was like, well, your AirPods are dead. You want to watch wrestling with me? And you kind of reluctantly did. And I remember specifically it was the Creed brothers. It was their like last match in NXT. It was a tag team ladder match, and we had just seen them on Raw the day before for their debut. And I remember you actually like watching it and kind of getting into it. And to me, that was like the first sign of like, okay, this the live event did kind of work. It got her a little bit. I wonder how much she's gonna actually want to watch it now, but definitely more than she says. And then from there, I think it was kind of that whole week leading into Crown Jewels when we kind of started watching some Royal Rumbles. I started showing some old stuff, and then once Crown Jewel hit, I remember you made a comment of like, I don't know, like we were doing something, and you're like, I don't think we can watch it live, and I was like, oh, you actually want to? Oh, okay, and then we ended up watching it together.
Yes. And I want to say for sure watching Crown Jewel, then I was like, oh, okay, yeah,
Yes,
now I'm in it.
right.
Because then after that, then I was like, well, now I for sure have to watch Raw to see what's going to happen now. And then it's just since then, like I didn't stop. And also, I remember at Crown Jewel, because Rey Mysterio fought, right? That was when he fought
Logan
Logan.
Paul.
Yeah. And I knew Rey Mysterio
Mhm.
from before. And I was like, oh, like, is Rey Mysterio going to be on Raw? Like, am I going to see him? And you were like, no, Rey Mysterio's on SmackDown. And I was like, what? Like, because
Yeah.
I didn't understand this concept of Raw and SmackDown. Like, I knew, but I didn't know this concept that, no, you're either on Raw or you're on
They had
SmackDown.
like different rosters and stuff.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I like have a lot to learn here. And I was like, oh my gosh. So wait, if I want to see Rey Mysterio, I have to watch SmackDown. And I was like, okay, we got to pump the brakes a little bit. And so I was like, I'm going to now have to like slowly get into this and understand that there's hours a week that you have to watch to fully keep
Oh yeah.
up. And then, but also like I have to kind of learn because I really didn't know anything.
No.
And so, but yeah, since then, I've obviously watched it and then I'm
Yes.
getting more into it. And that's why we're here talking about it too.
Yeah. So Crown Jewel was our first one that we watched together, as far as like premium live event, right? And I think since we both watched Royal Rumble together and Elimination Chamber, so we've caught them all. Obviously, leading up to WrestleMania, and then we've watched a good amount of Raws. I wouldn't say every Raw, but a good amount of Raws between those. So definitely in that phase of trying to get you caught up on who people are, and obviously allowing you to pick your favorites and why, and that's a different discussion for we can have. But yeah, I think that's been a really cool journey for me, who's somebody who's been in this the whole time, is seeing like the newness from you, getting to share stuff with you and say like, hey, here's what's going on, and explaining like the backstories behind certain things and stuff. And so really getting to see that and see where you started from not wanting to go to this live event to now, you're the one sometimes asking me like, what are we watching or what's going on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I definitely think, you know, next episode for sure, we're going to talk about the wrestlers, your favorites, and your history. Because, well, I mean, gosh, that could be like 10 episodes, all
Yes,
your favorite
yes,
wrestlers and all that.
yes.
Um, but also my journey with picking my favorites. I think that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How you just kind of like pick a wrestler that you like and the patterns maybe. And so we're definitely going to discuss that next week because I think that's a longer discussion, especially leading up to WrestleMania.
Yes.
Because I definitely think some of mine are gonna win and are the best, but we'll talk about that.
That's debatable. Mm-hmm.
Definitely want our listeners to comment some of their
Yes.
favorites and who's gonna win WrestleMania and all that. But yes, I definitely think that going into this, you've educated me a lot on not just like how it works, but the wrestlers. So we'll definitely get more into that next week.
For sure.
And WrestleMania, because over the next couple weeks, we're going to talk about not only like more the introduction into this for me with the wrestlers, but also WrestleMania is the biggest event of the year, right?
Yes.
So we definitely want to talk about that, and after WrestleMania, talk about what happened.
Yep. The fallout, current events, whatever's going on, for sure.
Of course.
One thing I do want to I skipped over it a little bit about being a fan and what it means to me, but I do want to just say that seeing you in this journey of becoming a fan, for me personally, has been something that's helped me, and I hope it helps. I hope sharing it will help people. I don't know for sure, but I think there was a stigma with wrestling for a long time, at least that I imposed on myself, that it wasn't cool or whatever. So for most of my years as wrestling fans, it was kind of a secret, or didn't broadcast it to the world. And so seeing you quickly become a wrestling fan, quickly have your favorites, and be more than happy to share that with people, let people know who your favorites are. You're wearing shirts out in public of wrestlers. Like, that's helped me open up and realize that, like, this is a passion of mine, something that I really enjoy, and it's okay to enjoy it and be who you are. And so I think that that's something I want to share with our listeners. And this isn't something to hide, to be afraid of. Like, enjoy it. It's awesome. We're literally doing a podcast about it now that I've never thought of doing in the past. So, um, I just want to say for you, for you, like, thank you for doing that for me, even though you didn't even know you were doing that. But I definitely think this is something to be proud of, and I appreciate you getting into it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I mean, like I said, going to that live event, man, are you fans? Like you're deep and you love it,
Yes.
and I see why you do, and I think you should. I think watching it, first of all, the wrestlers and they work hard and they do a really good job at it, but I think there's so many fans from so many different walks of life and different people. So I don't see why not to love it and not to show that you love it, because I think there's, I mean, a ton of
Yes.
wrestling fans.
There
Like
are, for
I've
sure.
known a lot, not just you. But the more I talk to people, the more it's like, oh wow, like this is something everybody likes, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to talk more about this because there's a lot to talk about,
There is a lot to talk about.
and that's why we're here.
Yes. So next week we'll talk more.
Of course.
Of course. Well, I love wrestling.
I know.